What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday. And man, have I put a lot of time, energy, and effort into this one. Probably more so than any other one to date because I know it'll be scrutinized and looked over with a fine-tooth comb. Before we get started, I want to do our weekly house cleaning stuff. There's some debate over the dates in my Bayverse breakdown video. I was corrected a number of times on one date in particular. Funny thing is, I was corrected with different dates. So we can't all be right. I'm not saying that I'm right. I know I was trying to take notes during it. Stuff happens and I was never good at schoolwork, so maybe I'm wrong. Definitely willing to admit that. Maybe it's a convolution issue as to why I was confused as well. By the time we do our second installment in February, I will have rewatched the first one and clarified it for the new timeline to keep it up to date. Second thing, a lot of people talked about the Sunstreaker size comparison. I was gifted that Sunstreaker by a friend of mine as he exited the community when he decided to get out and he jumped into a different collection full steam ahead. He gifted me that, which I truly appreciate, and he's a dear friend. A lot of you guys saw the Collector's Rut video this week. Part 2 is coming next week. Just so you know, I am in a better place with it all now. The 2 dioramas that I've done have really helped, and I'm going to light the shelves as well. It's really helped bring the collection to life and sparked some new joy in it. I am selling a bunch of stuff though, so if you're looking for anything in particular, feel free to hit me up in a email or a DM or a PM on the Facebook or Instagram or what have you, and let me know what you're looking for. Moving on to this comparison. We're going step by step. This is going to be very detailed. We're looking at every element of these things. Quick caveat. The criteria for this is going to be based off of the things that I judge in a review. Namely, accessories, gimmicks, articulation, presence, paint, sculpt, materials, build. And we're not going to really talk about hardware because they pretty much use the exact same hardware. Mostly tension universals, swivels, and hinges. No ratchets in either one of them, etc., etc. I could throw in additional things, but I don't think it would be fair. For instance, I think that the Fanstoys packaging with the styrofoam insert is better than the Takara plastic clamshell. But I don't really judge things on this channel based on packaging, so we're just going to leave that out of the equation. We're only judging these two based on the criteria that we normally talk about on this channel. Hope that makes sense. Secondly, this particular hot rod that I have was an advanced copy from the Chinese factory. A few of them got out. This is before Takara moved everything briefly to a Vietnamese factory where we started seeing a lot more QC issues before they moved it back to the Chinese factory. And I can only tell you about the one that I have because I haven't messed with the other one. But theoretically, this would be a better built hot rod than the one released from the Vietnamese factory. At least I think that's how it all sorted out. I think there's more information on that on my actual hot rod review. But there's only a few differences. The color of the translucent plastic in car mode and stuff like that. I got mine in I think a month before the release because Manny, shout out to Manny, he had them and hit me up. I haven't heard from Manny in a while. Manny, I hope you're alright. Not Nerve Rage Manny, just as a FYI, but Cali Manny. And I don't think there's much else to say. This is very in-depth. Let's begin.
So let's get down to business, and you know we start with accessories. Accessory-wise, they both come with the saw blade hand. Both are done kind of equally as well. There's different pros and cons to each. They both come with 2 guns, one for each of you, pros and cons to each. The Fanstoys one comes with a target master, while the Takara one comes with a fishing rod. The Fanstoys also comes with an alternate head so that you could use it in scale with your Chug class figures for an MP styled Rodimus Prime in robot mode. Moving on to gimmicks, they both have the same visor gimmick. They're both equally unsuccessful in my opinion due to the ultra translucent of the plastic, but Takara comes with a matrix holding chamber which gives it a leg up.
Let's talk materials. The Takara uses basically 3 types of plastic. A softer plastic, a more robust plastic, and a translucent plastic. The Fanstoys uses mainly one type of plastic that's a more sturdy plastic in terms of feel, and plenty of die-cast pieces, as well as a translucent windshield and certain accents. Build-wise, they're both built fairly sturdy. However, the shoulder piece on mine for the Takara one has a tendency to come unplugged, as well as the screw in his left bicep tends to come unwound. The Fanstoys one, I have a tendency for the back plate of the lower calves to come unpegged, but that's it.
Let's start with the head articulation. So up. This is a bit tricky and subjective. So without breaking the sculpt, you get to about there. Breaking the sculpt, you can get all the way up. But it looks, I don't know why you would use this. But without breaking the sculpt, you get to about there. Looking down, you get the chin pretty much to the collar. which is good, but it's not great. If we look at the side profile, straightforward, down. So better than nothing. Fanstoys head, the slightest bit up, barely recognizable. The slightest bit down, barely recognizable. Swivel, intact. Shoulder articulation, out to the side, not very far. And I'm gonna do the Fanstoys one with this one real quick, just so you can see. It's just about equal. It's just about equal. You also get this outward shoulder movement, so that's nice, because it helps you get out to a different angle, but it does, once again, sacrifice the sculpt. And you can get the shoulder all the way around. Shoulder, limited range out. Swivel, 360 almost, but we get 8 up on the back plate here. Bicep swivel works with no problem at all. Bicep swivel, 180. Elbow is on a double jointed hinge, which gets a great run. Fanstoys elbow, single hinge, a little past 90 degrees, ever so slight. Wrists, swivel, a little tight, but they do. Fingers on a base hinge with typewriter fingers, and you get a bit of a hinge in out. Fanstoys wrist, swivel, 180. Fingers on a base pen knuckle, typewriter fingers, a hinge up and down, not back and forth. Waist, swivel with no problem, and ab crunch almost all the way over. We're sacrificing sculpt, but we're more okay with that, I think. Waist, swivel, 180. Hips all the way out for the full Van Damme with the front flap that's all on one piece, and almost all the way forward and back for almost the full Monty with a back piece that's also on a hinge. Universals for hips, full Van Damme. Not quite the full Monty, possibly a little bit more limited here in the back. Thigh swivel built around the universal for 180. Thigh swivel, 180. Knees on a double hinge that gets you pretty much the full run. Knee, single hinge, 90 degrees. Ankles, tilt up a great bit. Tilt down a good bit. Slight rocker. Ankles, tilt down a great bit. Tilt up a great bit. Even though there's a double hinge, not much more of a rocker, maybe slight. So they tie in most categories, but Takara has them beat 5-1 in the head, shoulders, elbows, torso, and knees, where Fanstoys has them beat only in the ankles. Looking at them from the front to begin our journey, the Fanstoys when proportions and height are better established. The shoulders also seem to be in a more natural position, and the lower legs seem more proportionate to the body, as does the head. I also like the way the Fanstoys crests arch up over the back in a more expressive and impressive manner. They both get the collar wrong. The Fanstoys one has that ugly break in the middle, and the Takara one just isn't accurate and looks plainer. It's hard to pick out anything about the Takara that outshines the Fanstoys one from the front. Let's begin. Sculpt wise, I think they're both very well done. I also think they're both painted very well. I might actually say that the Takara sculpt is better, but the head is disproportionately small to the body, which makes the Fanstoys one appeal better. Neither one have the collar right, but the Takara one seems more seamless than the Fanstoys one. Paint wise, it's about equal in terms of application, but Fanstoys went with the dumber down route as opposed to that chrome eye look they used to do, which does make this look not as good as their previous releases in that regard. So for the head, I'm giving the sculpt to Fanstoys, and I'm giving the paint to Takara. Not so much that Takara did it better, but we know Fanstoys didn't do it as well as they could. The chest area from the front is where Fanstoys kills the Takara. The colors seem more vibrant, the shape seems more accurate to the character as well as accurate to an anatomical proportionate body. The wideness of the chest to the the slimness of the abdomen. Whereas the Takara one, the color seemed duller and the shape is simpler and off-putting proportionately. From a 3/4 view, the Takara one begins to look better, but still doesn't look quite good enough because of all of the assembly of pieces, including the engineering for the shoulder articulation, which tends to look unsightly. However, from the side view, the Takara destroys the Fanstoys one because it doesn't have the massive gaps and openings through the anatomy of the torso. For the arms, I like that the Takara one does not have the red block coming into the headlight section of the top of the shoulder. However, I like the Fanstoys shoulder design where it doesn't seem as low as the Takara one and it doesn't seem as messy. Both of them have fairly streamlined arms. However, the Takara one is more painted and it has a double joint. The Takara also does the side blasters in a much smarter way, but they're both chromed out, which looks good on both. From the side, I like the proportion and shape of the blasters on the arms better than the Takara, and I also like the proportion of the tire in relation to the arm better. I also like that the color is more streamlined on the Fanstoys one, where there's an obvious difference in color of plastic on the Takara one. From the back, I much prefer the Takara sculpted details in the upper shoulder, but I like the extra orange added in the lower half of the arm on the Fanstoys. The mushroom cap is also highly visible on the Takara, where it isn't on the Fanstoys. But the Takara's arm blasters are more streamlined, where you can obviously see the engineering on the Fanstoys one. In regard to the hips, both use the same amount of paint apps. The Fanstoys one is more tune accurate. From the side, the Fanstoys one looks better. It has an additional paint app, more sculpt work, and the look of better material. A small piece of the figure, but one we're looking at. The thighs is another place where the Fanstoys one destroys it. Materials aside, the proportions make him seem stronger, more intimidating, and more appropriate to the size of the bot, where the Takara ones end up looking very skinny, almost emaciated, are unpainted, unlike the Fanstoys one, and take away from any intimidation factor. From the side, they're about equal to me. I like the bump out in the back of the thigh of the Takara one, but I like the half circle sculpt of the Fanstoys one, and the Fanstoys one is painted, giving it an edge up. From the back, the Takara one obviously looks better. However, the Fanstoys one allows for the car to have seats, so that's kind of a tie to me. The lower legs are some of the best aspects of both figures. Both of them are fully painted. Both of them are sculpted well. The front of them is pretty much a tie. If I had to give it to one, I would give it to the Fanstoys because the Takara one has a burgundy joint between the foot and the lower leg, throwing off the color scheme of the lower leg. From the side, I think the Takara is much more effective. It's cleaner. It's not disrupted by the joints and engineering, and the sculpt is more purposeful. From the back, the Takara one still suffers from the joint discoloration, but you don't see it as much because it's in shadows. The Takara is also better sculpted, in my opinion, than the Fanstoys one, and the Takara one completely hides the tires. So the Takara edges the Fanstoys one out in that regard. When it comes to the back of the figure, the same things kind of end up reigning true. The places where the Takara kind of exceeds is the cleaner thighs and cleaner lower legs, as well as the continuous red backpack for the backplate. The Fanstoys one, on the other hand, has extra paint apps on the arms. The crest is more expressive and impressive. The lower legs are beefier, and the backpack is more streamlined, which is ironic because the vehicle mode is definitely more streamlined with the Takara. But the Fanstoys one still looks more intimidating from the back than the Takara. Size comparison wise, I feel like the Takara one is left in the dust. The Fanstoys one fits better aesthetically size wise with both RC and Cup off grip. It's also far cleaner, so tends to fit in more with the rest of this bunch. Now if you're not using this bunch, I don't know what to tell you. It's all I got to show that makes sense. The Fanstoys one seems more naturally a part of the group than the Takara one. You could make the argument that that's because the majority of these figures are Fanstoys figures, and I wouldn't disagree with that. However, I also think it fits in better with the Ultra Magnus and the Wheelie than the Takara one, just for the record. This hot rod from Takara on this setting doesn't seem like a natural fit in the same way. Engineering and transformation wise, this is where Takara blows Fanstoys out of the water. They know what they're doing, they're absolute professionals, and even maintain a few masterpiece moments, both with the back hood popping out against the transformation and the shoulder piece wrapping around on the sides. This is where Takara takes a huge edge. Fanstoys maintains a frustrating, problematic, irritating transformation process. Now, looking at the two side by side, the Takara one is so much sleeker, while this one's a little bit clunky. You know, this one has the rubber tires, which is nice, as opposed to the plastic tires. The chrome is about the same. The colors come through more vibrantly on the Fanstoys, but also the Fanstoys has seats and stuff, so there is nicer stuff about this as well, but this just pulls off the aesthetic so much better than this one does. This one just looks a little bit more chunky, like a little chunky monkey. Presence-wise is totally subjective, so I'm gonna bring in a couple random opinions. But to me, the Fanstoys one has a stronger presence because it's not as messy in the shoulders, nor the engineering for the shoulders. It's more established in the front, and the wings are more expressive and dynamic. The head is also not disproportionately small, which does make it seem like it's more of a character. But now I'm gonna bring in my wife and kids and get their unbiased opinion, because they don't give a Okay, what's your name?
Jana.
How old are you?
10.
Do you care which one of these is better?
No.
Okay, which one do you think looks better?
The one on the right.
Can you point to it? Okay. What's your name, baby?
Selena.
How old are you?
5.
Do you care which one is better?
Mhm.
You do?
Mhm.
So which one do you think looks better?
That one.
Okay, thank you. What's your name?
Laura.
Do you care? Do you have any preference as to which one of these I prefer?
Do I care?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Which one do you think looks better?
I'd like to touch them.
I know, but this isn't about that. We can do that afterwards if you'd like.
I mean, I guess the one on the right.
Can you point to it, please? Okay. Now you can feel free to pick them both up and tell me which one you think is better.
The one on the right.
So let's look at our final scores for positives. Accessories, we got Fanstoys as the winner, with Takara as the winner for Gimmicks. Build and materials both go to Fanstoys. Hardware, which we didn't really touch on, but pretty much is tied because there's no use of any sort of special hardware being used. Both of them are using tension universals, hinges, and swivels. Articulation goes to Takara. Transformation goes to Takara. Alt mode goes to Takara. They both are $89.99 in American retail, so they're tied in that department. I also tied them for paint because Hoodlum is far better painted, but there's paint issues, whereas the Takara one is also painted well, and there are no issues, just not as much. And then there are the subjective elements, sculpt, presence, and scale, all of which I give to Fanstoys, but that could vary from person to person. That gives Fanstoys a score of 9 and Takara a scale of 7. But before we give a final determination, let's look at issues. Now, when we say issues, we're talking QC issues. For instance, I could say there was an issue with the scale with Takara, but that's definitely subjective. This is something that's going wrong. And the only one that we have to take notice of is the paint chipping with the Fanstoys one, both at the bottom of the hood and on the front of the chest if you transform it as the directions suggest. So we'll subtract 1 point from Fanstoys for that to give us a total score of 8-7 Fanstoys. And that's why I'm switching them out, because I think they top Takara.
So that's where I end up in my judgment of it, being as fair as I can be. The problem with stuff like this is that it always comes down to what's important to you. Things weigh differently. Now, I tried to weigh every aspect of it 100% evenly, but guess what doesn't mean anything to me? What the alt mode looks like. Guess what else doesn't mean anything to me? How difficult the transformation is. You know why? So I'm never transforming it. The articulation does, and that's one of my larger gripes with the Fanstoys. But mainly what I'm looking for is build, material, sculpt, paint, articulation. That's what I'm looking for. That's what means the most to me. What means the most to you is going to be different. Or maybe it's going to be the same. But weighing them all equally, that's how it comes out for me. And of course, some of that is subjective. One person might be like, I like my hot rod to look like he's wearing a cardboard t-shirt. Then you would like the sculpt and aesthetic more of the Takara one. And that's okay. But that's where I end up. There was a few pictures that started circulating last week of comparing comparing the two. And what they were trying to illustrate, I imagine, was the articulation abilities. So in the first photograph, they show them both kind of doing that signature move from the movie. The Takara one does it better, but you know what? I think the Fanstoys one looks better, even though he can't pull off the pose in the same way. The next one, with them on their knees, if you ever wanted to display them that way, which I'm not sure why you would, but if you did, the Takara one kills the Fanstoys one. The Takara one looks like he's about to focus on some training. The Fanstoys one looks like he's about to be executed by having his head cut off. And then there was a final image with the saw hand. And this one, I think the Fanstoys one just blows it out of the water. Even though the Takara one has a better range of motion in the elbow, the Fanstoys Sculpt just pulls this one out of the pocket. But, of course, that's subjective. That's how I view them.
But while I think the Fanstoys got the better of the Takara by a nose, as it were, I think it's a huge missed opportunity for them to have crushed the Takara one and really put their foot on the map as a company that can stand toe-to-toe with the modern official standard and bar, which is Takara. And it didn't do that. It edged them out, in my opinion. It's at least competing regardless of how you feel about it. But imagine the impact had it just shut it down. And in that regard, I think Fanstoys missed a huge opportunity.
So yeah, whichever one you go with, I hope you're happy with it. Just make sure you're buying it for the right reasons, and hopefully this comparison helped make that clear for you. I got some fun sit-down Saturdays coming. I think I'm gonna hopefully this next week when I can get done in time, but it's fun. It should be fun. We'll see. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.